and durable economy, we must address 8 fundamental human needs, namely food, clothing, shelter, defense, human resource development, that's health and education, infrastructure, electricity, roads, railways, telecoms. And also when he met with the interreligious council, they persuaded him and convinced him to include spiritual aspect. So another subsector that we are going to concentrate on with the guidance of our spiritual leaders is the spirituality. That's the morals and the mindset of our people. With this in place, other subsectors will emerge, and these include tourism, hospitality, that's hotels, bars, nightclubs, casinos, as well as entertainment. Those are concerts, sports, etc. The COVID-19 pandemic, therefore, provides great opportunities for us to accelerate our import substitution and export promotion drive in the context of enhanced investment in the 8 fundamental human needs based on the strong comparative advantage we have. Honorable colleagues, the guiding principle in Uganda's import substitution and export promotion strategy is creating production efficiency using local available resources, minimizing costs, and maximizing profitability while increasing production and productivity of enterprises. It also means producing high-quality products at low cost. This will result in high demand locally, regionally, globally for our products. Table 4 below shows a summary of the imports to Uganda in 2019, where Uganda can seize the opportunity from COVID-19 pandemic to accelerate import substitution and export promotion in the short and medium term and long term. And because of the situation, for example, Madam Chair and colleagues, we were importing sanitizers, but as we speak now, in the short time that we have mobilized our businessmen, we have over 40 factories producing sanitizers, and now we're exporting to Kenya and other parts of the economy, of the community. So, colleagues, we have identified, and we think that Uganda actually can replace up to 63% of the things that we import. For example, Uganda's import for vegetable products, animal, beverage, and fats and oil is $452.2 million per annum. We are importing mineral products of 1.2 billion, petroleum products of 956 billion, chemicals and related products 559 billion, plastic, rubber 380.4 million, wood and wood products, you can't believe, 494.2 million, and yet we have forests here. Textile and textile products 243, and machinery and equipment 1.2 billion. That's why we want also to thank the Committee of Budget that is supporting the Uganda Industrial Research Institute to operationalize the machine making center at the Namamve Industrial Park. So we think that for animal products, we can replace 100%. For vegetables, we can replace 100%. Prepared food stuff, beverages, and tobacco, we can replace 100%. Minerals products, we can replace by 50% because some of them need to be mixed with others, and also the speed at which our sector of minerals is developing. And we have given you all these areas where we think we can replace by 100%, and we think that the things that we are importing, which are close to 7-point-something billion, can be replaced and manufactured here to 63% if all of us combine efforts and have money to support our manufacturers. So from table 4 above, and based on assumption made therein, Uganda has the potential to substitute up to 63.5% out of the import bill of United States 6.186, and that has been updated. It comes up to 7, and we'll give you a right figure in a short while. in 2019 for those items only. The priority areas for import substitution and expansion of exports while addressing the basic human needs are the following. So we want now, out of this situation, to focus on the following: food production for domestic consumption and export, agro-based industrialization, based, for example, on bananas, maize, Irish, potatoes, cassava, sugarcane, and the rest. Textiles for clothing, using inputs such as cotton and organic petroleum products. Shelter, that is housing, focusing on production of cement, glass from sand, production of granite and marble using our vast reserves, particularly in Karamoja, steel from our iron ore in southwestern Uganda, that is Kcca. Mineral development such as copper used to make transformers, electric cables and meters, production of human medicine and veterinary drugs, production of defense and security equipment, including CCTV cameras, enhancing further our physical infrastructure and transport platforms, including support local production of transport and other strategic vehicles, and human development in the areas of production. I can just mention here that, colleagues, to stress the huge potential that we must harness, Uganda produces 5 million tons of maize annually. From maize, we can obtain animal feeds for livestock, poultry, starch for pharmaceuticals, in which the country currently spends 20 million per year, and yet we have cassava, for example, the vast land, fertile land of northern Uganda, and we are working with Archbishop Odama to help us in this area so that we can process the cassava we are producing in northern Uganda and start cassava alone. The factories which are operating here for pharmaceuticals are importing starch worth 20 million, and yet we have cassava that we can process to get this refined starch. Another case is cassava, which the country also annually produces 4.1 million tons. Apart from addressing the country's food needs, many byproducts can come from cassava. These include flour, ethanol, pharmaceutical grade starch, baking powder for bread, instead of which now takes from our country 300 million per year. And yet, what we are using in the bakery can be also got from cassava. From livestock, the country, US dollars. Yeah. From livestock, the country, according to 2014 household census, had 14 million heads of cattle, 14 million goats, 50 million chicken, 1 million sheep, and 447,000 tons of fish from our lakes. From these livestock, we can get milk, meat, skins, and even horns, from which the country is capable of producing goods such as powdered milk, butter, ghee, yogurt, cheese, lactogen, buttons. I think the cattle keepers here I can see General Kcca knows most of these things. Yes. So we also have, colleagues, so these are opportunities for import substitution, and the list is very huge. We can't go through all of it. But the export opportunities are also available. And these are areas where opportunities have opened up for increased exports. For example, the demand of Uganda's horticulture and coffee exports to Europe has gone up, and so have pharmaceutical products in the East African region, which we must take advantage of. Coffee prices rose by 6.1% in March 2020 to 109.05 US cents per barrel, from 102 US cents per barrel in February 2020, on account of rising global demand, with processors front-loading orders to avoid logistical constraints of COVID-19. The demand of Uganda's flowers has equally gone up, with more orders coming in as production elsewhere has drastically declined due to COVID-19 shutdown in those countries. Therefore, even with the COVID-19 pandemic, Madam Chair and colleagues, the demand for some items will remain high, both in the domestic and external market. And as we have already mentioned, coffee and horticulture exports, but also food including fruits and vegetables, pharmaceuticals, sanitary supplies, ICT solutions and services for business cutting labor costs, intermediate goods such as for construction, especially in low-cost housing segment, low-cost clothing and footwear made out of cotton and leather. All these are opportunities that we are prepared to focus on out of this situation. Like we are also providing strong leadership in the fight against the spread of COVID. It is possible if we believe in ourselves, continue believing in ourselves, to actually provide leadership in exports and import substitution in the region. So, Chair, this facility which I'm going to present here today is part of the interventions to address some of the negative effects I've identified above and seize the opportunities in the current situation. We are also finalizing consultations with different stakeholders, and I'm glad that we are also going to consult. So at the next, probably before we present a paper to the entire House, we'll also tap into what we have got. We also finalize consultations with different stakeholders on our comprehensive economic response strategy. And Cabinet is discussing this. And after Cabinet has approved the outcome of these strategies, we shall present them to this committee and Parliament for your final input. I thank you, Madam Chair and honorable colleagues.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. We have said that finally you have made our conditionality. It's a very good information paper, and also gives us the background against which we are going to process, to look into your notes. But I have one or two comments. You talked about import substitution, but you don't seem to be walking the talk. Recently, we are with Yuri. They've done a wonderful job under the Chinese law. But these are white elephants.
It's a grant.
Whether it's a grant or whatever, but it's a white elephant. Because they are ready, but they lack minimal working capital. The infrastructure is good, it is there, but it's not being utilized. And you are saying you want to put them at the forefront, produce the machinery which will help us to add value and reduce import substitution. Can you walk that talk? I don't know whether there is money provided in the budget for Uni, but Uni is a sad story. With all that much infrastructure and with all the hope created, to be seated idle, if they can give done something else. And also my concern is that we are not moving in fast enough. I think in economics, you know that when you want to invest, you invest when the market is lowest. And I think this is the opportunity for us to invest, especially in areas where we have comparative advantage. And this is agriculture. We have let all these ranks pass. We have argued on the floor of Parliament since this pandemic started that you should find money to buy seeds, especially for maize and beans, which we need locally and have got high demand in the neighboring countries. If we had available money in March, by now the maize will be flowering, the beans will be ready. And this will be a wonderful opportunity for us. I remember in 2008, when we had the financial crunch, that's what we did. And Uganda got out of that situation smiling. Because we were the only country which did not go to borrow from the IMF at that time. Because we took timely action. But now we are going to write papers, we are going to talk while the opportunities slip away. And while our competitors come in aggressively to seize the opportunities, can we really, these are good opportunities, can we move in quickly and aggressively for us to capture them? Because we will be telling the same stories year in and year out. And you know how we are still depending on rain-fed agriculture. God has given us a very good and long rain season, but we have not tapped into it. So I think something needs to be done by both stimuli to those areas which can quickly be put into action to deliver. Uri being one of them, agriculture providing seeds and agribusiness businesses, and this is one area really where Uganda has got comparative advantage, which we should seize immediately. Because even this maize you are supplying will dry out and you start importing maize. Whereas we should be net exporters of maize. So I just wanted to make those few comments. And because this agriculture is the main economic activity for most of our people, for 68% of our population, if we address it quickly and aggressively, we would save many of our people falling back into the poverty trap. Because now people have started sliding back. Those who are graduating to commercial agriculture are now sliding back to subsistence. Let's do something. And cassava, I always feel bad. This cassava, Uganda is the center of excellence for cassava in the entire world. But we have failed to seize these opportunities. And Uganda was identified as a center of excellence, I think, over 10 years ago. And what has happened from the wonderful research findings, which are lying on the shelves in Kawanda, in Namulonge, other countries have taken opportunity. Brazil, even our neighbors here in Kenya, and other countries, they are taking advantage of those expensive researches which have been done by Ugandan people, which would give us an advantage in cassava. Cassava has got a little place market. So it could also be put on the forefront. If you talk to the researchers in Namulonge and Kawanda, they are all frustrated. They have used their brains, they have suffered, and they have the doctorates, but without getting value out of them. Can we do something to tap into the wonderful research findings, especially in cassava, and for Uganda to take advantage of that excellency which has been achieved through our research. I would like to once again thank you very much for finally responding to our request. I think you see why it was important for us to have this paper before presenting within the law. We are going to have just a serious general discussion. The rest we shall discuss. The detailed discussion will come in the notes. Thank
you, Madam Chair. I also want to thank the Minister. He has been a bit more courageous than the Honorable Kcca, who came and say, somebody is still looking at it.
No, you should ask whether somebody has
so, and this is one of the reasons why we were asking you to put it on a letterhead and let it be signed. Because your senior minister came here and he was so scared, he said somebody was still looking at it, approving what they should come and present here. So I don't know whether that has been approved, because your content here says that the cabinet was still looking at a few things. So I don't know what has happened. Anyway, I thank you for this, but reading all this, to me, has been more theoretical.
Yes.
Theoretical in a sense that you have identified the problems, you have identified opportunities, you have not even acted. Although you hinted somewhere that now we are producing our own mask, we are producing sanitizers, although the cost still remains higher, because the cost of sanitizers has not gone down, it actually increased, and yet we are now producing here. Even the cost of masks.
I hope what warrant has gone up, because most of the warrant has been diverted.
Yes, I hope even this one, in the thought you are going to tell us government intervened in this area, and we have been able to put this to support mass production, to support sanitizer production. And if you've done that, our major concern as a committee, because we represent people, if you are just going to support Kampala people, the way you support the traders, you cause traders from Sudan, and some of you even never supplied anything to Sudan, got this money from Kampala. We are not going to accept that. Because people in the north, who traders in the north never got anything, and yet their lists were there. So I hope during this period, when you plan all this intervention, you take into consideration, for example, maize flour is now being supplied. But who are supplying? There are people up country who have enough, they can actually supply even better qualities, but they cannot access the market. So if you cannot give them money, why don't you buy their maize, give them the market, and let them deliver, and they're even cheaper. So as our chair said, we are definitely going to discuss some of these things further. The only intervention I saw in the real estate, which you raised here, is what the president said. Don't collect rent. Now, this don't collect rent is a general thing, not only to shops, because shops are closed, as you have alluded here. It is also residents. Now, if I am feeding my family on the rent which I pay, now you have come with an intervention, empty intervention, don't collect rent. Are you being fair to the people who feed on this rent? Not just shops. So let's separate the commercial rent from the other rentals as well. I thought you would also brief us that, you know, we never prepared for this coronavirus. I thought today you are going to include here that we have to do internal adjustment in our budget of 2019-2020. You have not indicated anything here. There are certain activities that are not going on. You are not releasing monies to the districts for everything that should flow. So where is the money? There are certain activities which has now ceased in the ministries. I thought you were also going to brief us in the committee that in view of these challenges, we had to do some adjustment like this, because revenue had also fallen, because we rely on quarterly release. But I thought you were also going to tell us that in view of all this, we have been able to receive this amount of grants. You know, we have been reading in the newspapers, but in your report here, there is nothing. So I thought you were also going to tell us that we have also, since this thing came, we have been able to receive this grant, and we have been able to effectively use them. Apart from the supplementary Parliament has given, you also got a lot of grants from outside. I thought you were also going to highlight this to us so that we know the state where we are. And lastly, Madam Chair, you talk about emerging opportunities. I thought this emerging opportunity is not just going to be, again, limited to the Kampala group. I've already seen some group in Kampala. Yesterday I watched them on TV, they're already approaching you. Private sector foundation. But you know, this private sector foundation doesn't sink down. It doesn't, these are mafias in Kampala. It doesn't sink down. When you talk about agriculture, each farm is not here. It is down there. So what are you going to do for the animal farmers, which you have just completely left to be private? Very expensive to manage. But now you want them, you identify them as a sector that will make us. What about the agriculture you're talking about? Are you going to give the money to the Kampala people? You know, the bulk of our agriculture is basically coming from the small growers. So what plans do you have? As our chair said, agriculture is seasonal. Now we are going to see Operation Wealth Creation taking cassava stems in December during a dry season. Would that work? So I think, Minister, while we wait to discuss further the details, I think your report is lacking to me, because you've not given us the intervention. Because we have listened to what Kenyans, our neighbors, they have also done. They have come out with some intervention. But ours, all the presidential address has been steering clear. You know, I want to pay scientists well, but some people are blocking it. That's not true also. Because Members of Parliament cannot block payment of scientists. It is your role to bring all those bills here in the Parliament, and you have never brought them. So please, we need intervention plans for the short term, medium term, and long term. If you could separate them like that, we are not against what the executive is doing. We are only complementing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Regan. As you can see from the heading of the paper, this is an overview. Finance, we are requesting for a lot of time to come up with a detailed paper. So I told them that unless they give us at least an overview of what is happening, we are not going to proceed with the loans. And yet the loans were badly needed. So they promised that they will come up with a more detailed paper, covering the short, medium, the breakdown, the detailed breakdown of the proposals they are making here, and probably with the stimuli, which they are working out to the sectors. So it was in the interest of saving time that we
Procedure, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, since this is an overview and we are waiting for a comprehensive report, why can't we move to further reports as we wait for that one, then we discuss when we have a full.
Okay. Seconded? Honorable Kcca?
No, okay. I just wanted to say that it's surprising. What you're saying is surprising. Because about a month ago, the minister told the plenary that they are ready with the report and they can present it the next day. Which is now about a month. But anyway, okay, let me just make my submission on this. I don't know what really the problem is on this, that we're coming up with overview, and my most sincere apology to my boss sometimes comes out as the chief whip. Okay, but Honorable Minister, I think the first thing that I would have expected with your paper are the key assumptions that you're making. But this may help them in when they're doing their final paper. I accept that it's still a consultative paper. But the first thing I think you need to be clear about are the key assumptions. For instance, how long are you assuming will be that business will be opening up? I don't get a feel of that. Are we in this for the next 2 months?
Madam Chair, I move the procedural issue.
Yeah, we have agreed that we take note of the report of the overview which has been presented and wait for detailed report which will
But I request that I present this. As you have given me the opportunity to speak, let me conclude this and then you can wind up.
proceed.
Yeah, the second thing which I find very interesting is that what you have on page 11. Basically, you are saying that because you have a potential for some import substitution, then the economy will emerge more resilient and much stronger. Now, the first thing I'm asking myself, why do you think, what is the basis of your justification of that? Why do you think, because of COVID, we'll emerge out of this much stronger, that we have the potential of achieving this import substitution? Why haven't you done it before? Why? I would have thought that should happen.
No, I think, yeah, you know, in the 10-point program, there was something like that. So you're now wondering why you waited 30 years.
Self-sustaining. So now,
but what is? Okay. What is the basis of your assuming? For instance, that we can substitute animal products 100%, vegetable support 100%. Why? You're saying that because we have COVID, now we can substitute this by 100%.
Balance payment.
It is an eye-opener.
Where is the
Then
back? What's the
the other
revenue
key
44 and all
issue
for
that
budget
we need to
support?
address. Of course, it's again dependent on the first issue I raised, your key
Yeah,
assumption.
where is it? What are we
Over what
budgeting? What's the
period do you
budget
think we'll
44?
be able to achieve is 100%, 50%,
Malice
60%?
Malice who can
Over
send
what
something
period?
what they have.
In 1 year, in 2 years, or, I think you've said
Those
here
are the
short,
details,
medium,
yeah.
and long term. But what is that short, medium, and long term? When our economy is marking stronger. And then finally, I'm really disturbed. That is the last time I'm talking about this. That in your overview, you don't seem to be bearing in mind that we have businesses that are suffering.
No, we do.
Last time on the floor, as you remember, we had a case study of New Vision, which is a government-funded agency, a government-funded agency. It's actually even operating at the moment, although business, in terms of adverts and things like that, have declined. It was even given some money recently. But they are closing down. They are closing their offices. They are cutting down on salaries for their staff. And they are also actually, inevitably, moving towards cutting down on the number of staff that they employ. But think about an organization, a small enterprise, which has been closed for the last 2 months or 3 months. They're not getting any income, but they have to pay the rent, they have to pay the loans, they have to pay whatever their liabilities are. And those are the majority. They are 60 to 70% in this country. And those, actually, virtually, they are closed at the moment. They are not just closed under lockdown, but many of them actually will not probably reopen. They've asked for some basic things.
Like what?
They've asked for help around pay as you earn. They've asked that actually you help and pay what you owe them in domestic areas, which is something reasonable, not out of the blue at all. That you pay them, you pay what you owe them as a way of stimulating their and enabling them to cope with the current situation. But I'm not seeing anything about that. And I think if you leave that out, then you are completely out of touch with the reality. But this is the last time I'm talking about this.
Thank you very much. I think after Honorable McKenna, my advice will be the last one. Because we are going to have a more detailed discussion when the detailed paper is presented. And some of the issues which were being raised will be handled when we discuss the numbers. Honorable McKenna?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I wish to thank Honorable Bahati for coming forward and presenting. But there's an area where I don't know whether to laugh or to cry. And I think to cry may be more appropriate. Yes, we will mourn as well, because we're talking about reviving the potential of starch, the potential of textiles, and the constituency I represent has a parish called Starch Factory. There used to be a starch factory in Lira municipality processing starch from cassava. It is one of those that got sold in the breakdown of industries. And when you look at the whole network to support that factory, it involved cooperatives at the primary level, and there was a whole chain. So if we wake up today and we say that we're going to now start processing starch, we need to really look, why did we allow it to collapse? The other area where I am paying is in Lira we had what was Lira spinning mill. The spinning mill would feed in from the ginneries across the whole region. And when you look at many of the ginneries, they were connected by rail. Where they come from Pakwat or in Honorable Veronica's constituency, they were all of these ginneries where they would produce from the primary producers, they would gin the cotton, The cotton will come to Lira spinning mill, it will be spun. From Lira spinning mill, it goes to African textile mill in Mbale and Niger. Now, the spin-off was where we get our edible oil and also the stock feed. When I go through Mbale and I look at the industrial area, a lot of the soap factories, those were originally based on the cotton industry. And then we had the textile. Now, if we suddenly say that because of COVID, we're going to revive this, I can tell you today in Lamu, 90% of the ginneries are no longer. Those that are existing are processing other things. Ngeta is processing sunflower. All of the ginneries have completely changed. Document within the municipality is also processing sunflower and a small amount of cotton. Now, if all of a sudden we're waking up and we're going to revive or reinvent the wheel after we destroy the wheel, I really hope that it's going to happen. But there's a lot of linkages which are necessary for this to work. You need the primary cooperatives to help the producer. You need the whole process. So if we talk about we're going to start to use textiles and we're going to start doing starch, we need to think about it in depth. And if we do, I can assure you we will be on board to ensure that our people get opportunities to produce and to help in the development of this country. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Vice.
Oh, you want me to be? Chair, I've looked at table 3 on page 7. The summary of it is that exports will fall below, during 2019-20, will fall below the 2017-18 performance. Imports will also fall below. Foreign direct investment will fall below. And by extension, consumption is also likely to fall below. So now the major question, how do you get to the conclusion? Because we know those are the key determinants of GDP, that GDP is going to grow. How? These are not my figures, these are your figures. How do you then jump to a conclusion that GDP will grow when exports have stagnated, when FDI has fallen, consumption has fallen, farms are stressed? I think we need to be sincere. Well, what stimulus package is government thinking about? Is the central bank going to lend a lot to commercial banks? I see Executive Director Jacob Obrot from the central bank. Tell us, do you have a plan to lend a lot more so that they can also lend it to me, because I'm a private sector person? Because when you say there are emerging opportunities, you're talking about something we have not tested, import substitution. How will it work within the existing world economic order of globalization? Should we expect a reaction? We are going to consider this loan, which we are saying it is going to be very helpful in stabilizing the exchange rate. Are there any indications that the exchange rate has depreciated? Is there demand for foreign exchange in our circumstances? And even if it has depreciated, is it a priority in the circumstances? Is it a priority? I think we need, because this is a huge load, we're talking about close to $500 million US. Even the little that is not for stabilization is going to UDB. Is it UDB?
Yeah. And UDB.
Will that money reach the SMEs?
Yeah.
You know, these are the questions we need to tease out, and I feel obliged to speak out because I'm an economist, but I'm also Ugandan, you know. And when you say this loan, I know you are going to say we haven't considered the loan yet, will help us not just import more, sorry, not import more, but import less. I read that statement. How is it going to help us to import less? These are issues I want here. How are you going to bail out stressed farms? Maybe the only hope is an expected bumper harvest in agriculture. Tell us, will it address all these issues because agriculture is likely to do well, thanks to the good weather, favorable weather conditions? So let us really be sincere. Rather than looking at the future, let us say what is the current situation. Because we are, as a committee, we are saying we want to talk to these people and they tell us how they are suffering. But I'm aware they are laying off people, unemployment is increasing, people, a greater number of people are sliding back into poverty, income inequality is rising. What are we really going to do to address these issues? We want a candid, rather than, is it going to be business as usual? Piecemeal interventions, IMF gives us so much money, or is it going to be a holistic strategy? Development strategy, and that's what I wanted to see.
Okay, thank you very, very much, your colleagues, for the concerns you have raised and the observations. But this paper was intended to give us an overview, to help us by more background to discuss the loans which are going to be presented. I request the Minister in 5 minutes to respond to the key issues which have been raised, then we'll proceed with them.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Chair. As we said in our conclusion, once we finish the consultation and approval of Cabinet on the specific interventions, and I can just peep into the future and let you know, part of the investments that we are going to make address that, and where the area of focus will be is in support of the manufacturing sector, in support of small and medium enterprises and cooperatives, and we have an arrangement to do this through investment in Uganda Development Bank, so that people can borrow at an interest rate that will determine not more than 10%. We have an obligation to invest more money in UDC, which is working and partnering with cooperatives like Honorable Jimmy Akena has talked about. People who are producing starch in northern Uganda, Dembale coffee factory. There are also some other factories in Jinja that have been approved and have consulted government for support. But Uganda Development Corporation has no resources to support them and partner with them. So part of the resources we are mobilizing, one, and as you will see, we want to invest 1 trillion in the Uganda Development Bank so that people can borrow at less than 10%, up to 10% interest, which we think will be a huge achievement in terms of access to capital, because that's one of the limiting factors in business. Then UDC, there are more than 15 companies that would like to partner with government, but we don't have enough resources. So we are going to also channel more than 100 billion in the UDC. And we are investing around 300 billion in all these resources we are mobilizing to specifically support agriculture. Distribution of the right seedlings.
What happened to the agricultural credit facility?
The agriculture credit facility is there and it's working through the commercial banks, and we have a revolving fund of 125, but we also note the challenges that they are facing in terms of access It's the same thing that we want to streamline with Uganda Development Bank, because the question has been, if you have a farmer in Guru, a farmer in Kabramaido, how do I access Uganda Development Bank? So that's now what we are working out the modalities, and you will see as we progress in this intervention, comprehensive intervention, you will see this vision coming out clearly, how people are going to access this money.
Procedure, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm forced to raise this procedure because, first of all, you said the minister gave us an overview. He's going to go back to come back with the comprehensive. Now, all the issues we raised, I thought that the minister had taken note, and when he's coming back, they will be part of this broader response. And Chair, I think what you should ask the minister is to tell us when he would be coming with that report, which should clearly see the immediate, middle term, and long term in all these proposals that are coming out. Because that's the only way we can.
Chair, supplement that, and which is a very, very big concern. Really appreciating the efforts the government and the ministers are putting in place. At least one would want to hear something to do with our rural people. Because, Madam Chair, we don't legislate just for these factories. When you're talking of import substitution, but no, how many people can benefit from that? So, Madam Chair, I think the minister should come out clearly. In all this they put, for example, we've not seen you proposing anything for microfinance support center.
It is there.
So that our locals can get. Then number two, also the circles which can access money in microfinance support center are those big circles. The small circles down on ground do not. So and yet our border riders and Madam Chair, like we were talking about yesterday, look, we are getting calls from our people. Our schools survive on local circles. Our small businesses survive on local circles. So we would want to know, Honorable Minister, in your strategy we request, list, for example, the registered circles in this country, those which cannot get money under microfinance support center because of not meeting the stringent requirements. You see a way of intervening and giving them money, so that the local economies can also start coming up. Otherwise, we are going to be wearing Kampala. When you go home, you again overwhelmed by the big numbers of people who are having nothing to eat.
Yeah, I think, Honorable Minister, the concerns which have been raised by the honorable members has given you an idea on what to come up with in your detailed report.
Madam Chair.
Okay, then, Madam Chair, maybe with your permission, now that the background information has been given, I would want to request that I formally present this request to you with some justification, and then it will be.
When are you coming back with that report?
The detailed report.
Madam Chair.
I think if members, you listen to the presentation and what is there now in this request, then I would, at the conclusion, I will give that when I'm coming back.
Okay, Honorable Bernard, you have something?
Yes, Madam Chair, Honorable Reagan and colleagues rightly presented what we expect from the ministry, and my concern is in walking the talk, as you said. The masks that we are putting on are imported from China. And he's talking about import substitution.
Why don't you print it?
We would like to see plans of curtailing this importation. If we're talking about import substitution, we should be seeing it in reality. Because I don't want to go to joint medical stores to purchase masks, and I find there are masks from China. That's where we're talking about the reality. I bought sanitizers, and I think we must appreciate, yes, we actually, these local producers actually making an impact. I bought 4 liters of sanitizers, and the VAT that was charged on it was about 18,000, which to me was something substantial in terms of contributing into the economy. And these are locally produced sanitizers.
Just excise duty alone on Eastern, and you want a product which is excise duty alone on Eastern, okay, is over 60%. Just on Eastern. And they are satisfied. So because of the high costs, so if you have, for example, this sector, what we were proposing, Madam Chair, as manufacturers, you say if you pick your, if you buy ethanol for sanitizer, not alcohol, okay, you should be exempted and they are able to monitor you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and then what you saw, Madam Chair, what the minister presented last time, that these factories which have been producing alcohol now start producing sanitizer, you have been tax exempted. We went to Sibioya Bianswa. We reached in URA, they told us those are political statements. They are not grounded anywhere in policy. The late Minister of Finance presented to us the exemption it has given to producers of sanitizers. And you see, nothing. Nothing. So most of them are just speeches.
They have not done
Honourable
anything.
Minister, please take note.
So,
The
Madam
July
Chair,
we want to see in your next presentation. I think we can now proceed.
Madam Chair, in the few
Police, can you have one meeting? Can you have one meeting?
request to you, Madam Chair, to formally submit to this House, to this committee, our proposal of 300 million US dollars for budget support for financial 2019-20 from the International Development Association of the World Bank to provide sufficient financial resources to the health sector and to mitigate effects of COVID-19 on the economy. Secondly, 361 SDR, that's
Procedure, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. I want to thank the Minister for moving straight to the loan. Madam Chair, we agree that all these loans should be backed by a letter from the President. Did we receive? How is the procedure?
Thank you. And 491.5 million are from the International Monetary Fund for balance of payments and budget support to address the negative effects of COVID in the financial 2019-20. Madam Chair, these two loans have two components, and we are printing a schedule in just 3 minutes to be with you. But it has one, to support the Bank of Uganda balance of payments. Second, to support budget support in terms of the budget shortfall, but also in some areas, and you are going to see the schedule where we are going to invest this money in just 3 minutes. And because that schedule is just coming from the Office of the Clerk, I wanted to request the Bank of Uganda to explain the resources that we are going to invest in the Bank of Uganda for balance of payments, specifically what balance of payments means and how this is going to support the Bank of Uganda. And when that paper comes, I'll now show you where we are going to invest the rest. Mr. Oporot was my lecturer at the university, and now is the director.
And for you, well.
You can see how the world is round.
The world is unfair.
So there's no mic, yeah?
Is there a mic? Is there?
Your lecturer should sit in your place.
So, honorable members, I think the Vice Chair
there demand for foreign currency in the domestic financing market? As the shilling is depreciated, is the BOE going to increase liquidity in the market? And is there the balance of payment support a priority? I think that's where we should start from. Is balance of payment support a priority right now? I think the Honorable Minister indicated in his presentation that remittances have declined, FDI has declined, exports have declined. So going forward, our foreign exchange earnings are going to decline. And that, if you look at this financial year and next financial year, someone that also asked about the assumptions. The assumption we are making is that there will be recovery next financial year. But most of that recovery will be in the second half of next financial year. In the first half, we're going to see some gradual recovery. So I think the other issue I not raised was the tourism receipts. Initially, let's say last financial year, our tourism receipts were 1.3 billion. As at February this year, that's the first 7 months of this financial year, we had raised only 800 million. And therefore, it's very unlikely that in the remaining part of this financial year, we're going to get anything. So overall, our balance of payments is going to be in deficit. When the balance of payments is in deficit, then the reserves are going to decline. And if foreign exchange reserves decline, then you are going to get a situation where there will be a rapid depreciation of the shilling. And if the shilling depreciates, what are the consequences for the economy? One, we know that if you look at our consumption basket, a high percentage of that consumption basket is composed of imported goods. So there's a path through from exchange rate depreciation to domestic inflation. If you look at the period from 2018, January 2018 to date, the shilling has depreciated on average by about 2% on annual basis.
Procedure?
Madam Chair, our good doctor is making a very, very important presentation and giving very important data. Doctor, it seems you're reading from a certain document. Why don't you share it with us?
No, Chair, there's actually no
This is
document.
unfair. You can't come to look for over $300 million.
Then you
with
come,
talking
that's
points.
you have it.
No, Chair.
But I think
Looking at the table in the
Maybe supplementary.
the
Supplementary procedure, Madam Chair.
Who is looking at the table in the brief?
No, supplementary procedure, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I think this procedure right. For the minister first to give his presentation, as he has written, then he can call out the staff to give a backup. Because now it's just right. You know, the first page now it's calling staff.
No,
So I think we will procedure right.
I can do that.
If he finishes, then
You know,
he
these
can call
two
the
loans
staff.
were presented to the committee. The two loans were presented to the committee sometimes.
Procedure, Madam Chair.
But we deferred discussion because we wanted a brief. We wanted
Procedure, Madam
the
Chair.
report on the. Can you allow me to talk first, please? The reports were presented, so now they are here for discussion. We didn't discuss.
No,
The two reports for Kcca, I think, were presented, but if it's the wish of the committee, we can present them again.
Procedure, Madam Chair.
Chair, I can
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. After reading carefully the President's letter, it talks about 500 million US dollars, 150 from the World Bank, and 350 for budget support. However, when you look at what has been submitted, it is close to over $600 million, almost 800. Instead of 150, which the president talked about, they are talking about 300 million. Now, instead of 350, they are talking about 361 million shillings. Is it procedurally right, as a principle, after getting, as we agreed that we should always follow the letters? The letter talks about 500 million, and the minister is submitting close to 700 million, 800 million. Is it procedurally right to continue discussing? Then at the end of the day, we discuss loans that are going to be recommended by the president.
Where is somebody who can present it?
Minister, can you clarify that?
This letter, what is the other letter for World Bank? Bank of the Bank. World Bank. How about the other one?
Kcca? No, we don't have a link to Kcca.
No, the other one of World Bank.
This is the one.
But the World Bank.
The 300
It
million.
does.
A clearance from the
And
president.
that same line, I would propose that
This is the one.
the figures.
Let him respond first.
Madam Chair, I want to request the committee. We are going to check for the other letter for the World Bank, but we have here a letter for the IMF, and I would really request the committee that you can request us to present the content of the request, the loan request, and these documents will be forwarded to the principle of saying the clearance of the president on these loans. You know, it's not that we're wasting time, Madam, Mr. Damzung. We are not wasting time. But if I can,
Minister,
No, let me inform him. Your boss, Honorable Kcca, was here, and he said no loan should be processed without the authority from here. He was
yes, yeah. The president wrote the two letters, but
So
I hear, yes, yeah, but
Can you allow him to clarify, please? Okay, proceed, please.
if I can,
Let him clarify, please.
Madam Chair,
So
just
I think
it might be good for you. For example, if you can just give 300 against 150 from the same bank, really, how come it is 150 and it turns out to be 300 million?
but colleagues, if we go into the substance of the presentation, and then these supporting documents come, if they don't come, you don't proceed. But I think the most important thing is both the letter of the president authorizing the loan, but also what the loan is going to do. And if that is presented well, then the committee can consider, and yes, and we'll bring the letter.
Procedure, further procedure, Madam Chair.
Can you
Madam
allow
Chair.
him to finish his
No,
clarification?
it's a procedure. Madam Chair, as you reminded us,
The report of the
you
president
remember last
is in
time we
respect
had
of
this
this loan
argument
only.
when we
Yeah,
had
but
the
he's going
Honorable
to
Bank
bring
of the
another one.
Yeah, this one is another one.
We allowed him to
And this one is
present,
exchange rate variation.
which he did. And I don't think there's a difference in content.
No, there is.
What he is presenting today, apart from the figures.
We have changed.
No, the figures change, but I don't think there is much difference in the content of the presentation. And that is why you say, actually we should begin the discussion.
No.
Now, the contention then was about figures.
That's it.
So I think the biggest challenge we now have
What is
is that the figures
This
have
one's-
changed. But I remember some question was raised to the minister when we were up there, that IMF
Kenneth.
has been even willing to give more.
And if you can bring more
So
copies, why
me,
have you brought even if they are not?
if the minister could tell us,
Bring all
because
of
it
them.
looked like the IMF
bring all of
is
them.
in the willingness to give more all the time, and some people are negotiating. Now, if to the president's knowledge, because this is a loan, we have to pay. It is a commitment. If he said, no, I think 150 plus this is this, but now we are heading to 700.
800.
No, 800. We're now heading to 800. And even the letter which now you brought as a backup does not clarify. So would it be a bit proceed to the right, madam? For us to proceed without the minister substantiating about what the president had cleared.
That's what we are attempting to do.
That's what I was. That's what I was.
Learn something small. Colleagues, we can again use our method, okay? When they glare us, because sometimes they glare us, we come back here, we rotate several times.
Give this
We
one to
can
the chair.
agree that for us internally,
Give you
we
the
do
chair.
our work, but no report without the presidency.
Yeah.
Okay? Yes, we say no report without the presidency letter. So that we, because Madam Chair, why I'm raising this, and it's in respect to you, it's in respect to you. My concern is coming here and I spend a day without doing any work. And plus the work we have, which we know we have. So would it be wrong, would it be wrong to say there will be no report without the presidency letter? Because what is important is the report. Yes, we shall not present a report if there is no presidency letter.
Our minister, can you?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the additional information I wanted to give to you, the 350 million out of these facilities, 350 is going to the balance of payments. And as you see on page 6 of the brief, justification for this loan, it's actually 340, will therefore be used to maintain sufficient levels of foreign exchange reserves and to ensure that the shilling is stable. That was one of the justifications for Bank of Uganda support. The second one is to address the issue of inflation and increased costs of production. Regarding the loan, this additional information I wanted to give to the committee. Regarding the loan to from the World Bank, together with part of this loan of IMF, and the schedule is coming, and I'll read through what this money is going to do. Out of these two facilities, we are going to support capitalization of UDB with 455 billion. We are also going to support the Microfinance Support Center with 10 billion and support agricultural productivity another extra 10 billion. The second category of support will be social protection and natural disasters. SAGE, which is for the vulnerable people, the old people, is 72 billion. Cash transfers to vulnerable groups to urban areas, 140 billion. And these are going to be supported through SACCOs, through Emyoga and others. Public infrastructure destroyed by the natural disaster, we are proposing 20 billion out of this. There are also government commitments plus domestic areas. The schedule is just in a minute is coming. we will be supporting this with 700 billion budget support, and then the total of domestic areas support to innovation engaged in COVID interventions. There are, for example, scientists who are attempting to do vaccines. There are people who are attempting to produce test kits. All of them are going to be supported with resources out of this. Then the health sector, purchase of masks, 45 billion. And Uganda prisons with 10 billion. So the grand total out of these resources, 1.8 trillion, will support these initiatives, and the rest will go to Bank of Uganda to support the balance of payments, as Dr. Oporot was trying to explain. So, Madam Chair, we are giving you this additional information to be able to process this loan. One part of the loan is to support balance of payments, to stabilize the exchange rate, to control the inflation, and keep an eye so that our reserves do not go below the required amount. And then the budget support, it comes in because of the current challenges, but also of the fact that our revenue has actually fallen further by 1 trillion, and yet we must operate up to the end of the financial. But most importantly, to address the specific needs coming out of this pandemic, to support the scientists, to support the business communities through payment of domestic areas, to put resources in UDB and UDC so that the economy can now continue to be resilient. Now, after we have managed to finalize and consult on the comprehensive strategy of the economic response, you are going to see other things that members were raising, issues to do, what we do with the deferment of some taxes, pay as you earn. All those will come in line with what the President has guided. I want to beg that I do submit. And all the supporting documents, as we have agreed, will be availed to the committee before the final report is done.
Honourable Minister, I don't know how we are going to handle this The committee has been accused of playing loans. Have been accused, and this is being talked about in public domain, that we are the ones who delay processing loans. And yet there are standard requirements which must be fulfilled. And usually the time and again, the executive does not fulfill them in time. And it causes a lot of discomfort. Even causes suspicion that maybe the chief executive is not part of it. Because why should a letter from the president take so long? And of this magnitude. So as colleagues have said, I think we can proceed and process examine the loans, but we don't write any report until when you get.
No, it will come shortly.
And this is what we have been promised for the last 2 weeks.
No, Madam Chair, you were a Minister of Finance, and some of these dynamics.
No, at that time there was nothing.
And Kcca knows. And Kcca knows.
Honorable Damson, do you agree with the proposal that we look at the loans and keep them pending until we get the presidential seat?
Thank you. Madam Chair, still it's becoming even more confusing. I wanted some clarity before we reach there. These are two serious figures. I'm very sure the minister has very many loans that are even more efficient and they are very clear that we can work with. I totally disagree with my colleague Tayo, saying that we shall be wasting time. We were here and we did something before the minister came in. I'm very sure the minister has over 7 loans with us here. And some of them are very clear. I don't think they shall be wasting time. When we look at page 6, I wanted some clarification from the minister. the president's letter, and we are saying it in good faith, because when Honorable Kcca was here, he also insisted on the same. I wanted some clarity. The president's letter speaks about $340 million for Bank of Uganda. The justification of the loan is 340 on page 6. A difference of $10 million is a lot of money. So I wanted to get more clarity on that. However, for me, Madam Chair, I would think if there is anything, because if we are talking about Bank of Uganda at 350, then health, as it's stated in the letter, at 150, we proceed.
Why don't we start with the ADB loan, which is more clear? And then this balance of payments, Kcca and other loans, development bank.
No, but how will members know?
There is a proposal that moves Kcca while you sort out.
No, but
because we have not even received those papers you said were coming to class. And we cannot respond to the details.
no, Chair, yes, we are here really to present the two loans, and we are ready with KCCA, and I'm glad that I presented the balance of payments, the additional documents.
I thought there were three loans you were here for.
Yeah?
Are you for two?
Today we programmed for two because we had that program before.
Yeah.
No, what about the one for help?
Which one? No, the balance of payment, and budget support are combined. So now, Madam Chair, we are now ready for the KCCA. Yeah.
So we are ready for the KCCA. The other one is
It's not in abeyance. It's active. It's active. Where is that document? So, Madam Chair, the next proposal is to borrow up to $224 million from the African Development Bank and $51 million from the African Development Fund to finance the Kampala State Roads Rehabilitation Project. We did present this brief to you last time, and I would like now to request, maybe through the Minister of KCCA, really to go into the details of the lots, because that was the key issue which was remaining.
Yeah, honorable colleagues, you remember that the tour we made of the Kampala City roads. Those are the roads which are going to
Those are the roads, yeah.
Those are the roads which are going to be covered by this loan. And remember, we wanted clarity on the intersection, on the overlaps, whether this road, KCCA roads, were not overlapping with the sections covered under the Kampala Jinja Expressway. I think that was clarified. Yeah,
That was not clarified.
That's what I
and that was
presented.
discussed during our tours. So the overlap does not arise now.
Madam
This is the
Chair,
one I presented.
we
No,
agree
this is the one.
that UNRWA
I read
gives
this.
us all those small roads. Then KCCA gives us, which they have done. But I'm very sure, unless otherwise, we agree that we first receive the roads on Jinja Highway, Express Highway. Then we compare as a team before we look at this road also. That's what I remember when we were at UNRWA.
I think that was the purpose of our going to the field, to see it physically on the ground. And we did.
Madam Chair, you remember we not go through all the roads.
If it's on the...
No, I thought
Yes, Honorable Veronica.
I thought, Madam Chair,
Honorable Veronica.
we met UNRWA.
Yes.
It was really our decision that we cannot go to all of those spots. I thought there were clarity on the intersection where UNRWA would begin and the road taken by UNRWA. And what was left I think with KCCA,
This is the signed
was
copy.
there not about the intersection on the road? Because we had a long time the program. They even had a presentation. And it is us who actually said we cannot see all of them because we have to return to Parliament.
I thought that had been cleared when we were, if you want it on paper, I think that the ED is here. The ED is here, he can give us a list of those roads which are not supposed to overlap with the ED Express.
Madam Chair, this phone was considered to us as a representation. But I was told there was variation in the figure. So I think what they do, let them talk about the increment or decrease in the figure, rather than going through it.
Which was submitted to plenary yesterday.
Yes. So they talk about that variation also.
Yeah. Madam Chair, can I request the Minister for KCCA and your team to clarify on the arrangement which we presented yesterday? Hmm? No, Chair. No, Chair, we are presenting as government. So how we manage our side, I think, can you leave it to us?
I thought just to make the thing easier, members are saying what was outstanding with KCCA was for the Minister of Finance to go back on the floor of Parliament.
What was it?
And that was done yesterday.
Which was done yesterday. So I think it will take him just 1 minute to say that matter was settled yesterday. And now the fingers have been harmonized.
And it's not on the answer.
Yes. Yes.
And Chair,
It's on the answer.
and Chair, this is the matter of finance which works on loans. Because anything to do with the figures, KCCA will go with the figures coming from finance. So why did finance
What
give
was
us
the
those
issue?
figures in the beginning? So it's their issue.
There are two windows.
We have to justify.
The ADT.
Where are you
and
from?
The ADS.
No, but they were just trying to bring
You
it.
explain it.
And the mistake was
Yeah, explain it.
and was resubmitted. The corrected figures were resubmitted to us by the plenary.
Yes.
So we have no reason to question.
Yeah.
Because that was done on the floor yesterday.
No,
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, but Chair.
Madam Chair, you know, the way we are attending greenery, the case that was not among those. If you say now,
Give me that figure.
so it has to be formally presented in the committee declaration.
You remember, when we were doing our work, we were instructed by the plenary. And yesterday, the minister went to the floor and withdrew this earlier request and submitted a new request and a fresh request. And the first request was committed to the committee by the plenary. So now we have discarded the old one and we are now handling the new one in accordance with the instructions of our bosses.
Madam Chair, I think you are not in contradiction with the Honorable Mudimi. Honorable Mudimi just is saying, yesterday he was not there. So it will be incumbent just for matter of formality. Either you will say this matter was presented, and maybe the minister will have to explain why they presented different figures. Yes, just as simple as we will not take him 5 minutes. Why do you first present the wrong figures?
Yeah,
And then later you come back.
we have a copy of the highlights of the answer
Yes.
where this was presented.
Yes. And the reason why we did. I can go through it. There was a resolution. I don't want us to contradict ourselves. So let's Merida. Clark. Bring me that. We don't want to contradict because I have not brought this. I saw today you are people. What was the correction
This
for?
is what you mentioned. You said you first presented. So this is you withdrew this, and then now you table this afresh. So you can just inform them that you withdraw.
What is the reason of withdrawal?
The reason, these are highlights. The reason is not there. This is not the Hansard extract.
What was the reason of the change?
The window.
What was the reason of exchange? What was the reason of exchange?
Honourable Minister, for the comfort of the members, repeat the dissertation, please.
So, Chair, we had presented to the House and subsequently this committee to seek approval of 219.4 million from the African Development Bank and 55.6 million from the African Development Fund to finance Kampala City Rehabilitation Project. So under the African Development Fund, we realized that this window, in other words, the allocation, what was remaining in that window was 51 million US dollars. So we could only access 51 million US dollars from the African Development Fund to finance these city roads. And therefore, we made that change and the figure reduced from 55.6 million to 51 million US dollars. And because there was still some window under the African Development Bank, we increased it from 19.4 million US dollars to 22.0 million US dollars under the African Development Bank. So the only reason why we had was the availability of allocation under the window of African Development Fund, which were adjusted accordingly, and this was presented to the House yesterday, and I'm glad that you have already got the resolution, the request from the clerk, and that was only the change that we made, respectively. I thank you.
Procedure here. How does that now change the strata? Because we had laid the number of roads, the previous amount was supposed to cover a certain kilometerage of roads, and you had already put some roads which was supposed to cover by the previous amount still cover the request by the KCCA to do the roads.
Yes, we have reduced on one side and increased it on the other side, and the whole amount is, the whole requirement is still covered under the same arrangement. You understand, Honorable Kajal?
Yes, I do. You have just made me understand that you have last year and added there.
Yeah.
How about the terms and conditions? Are they still similar?
Yes, the terms and conditions are still similar. They have not changed it, and the scope of work has also not changed.
Maybe, Madam Chair,
Maybe that
I
is
just
the
have a
management
question.
of the ground.
I have a question, Madam Chair. I think I thank the Minister of Finance because what we asked them, they did yesterday. Because my understanding is that we never tied down on the KCC loan. We went ahead, but the condition was that we can only produce the report if the figures are formally corrected. And I do not know whether that too now has the presidential assent for the KCCA, including that adjustment. But the question I want to raise, Madam Chair, especially to the Minister for KCCA, is that I have been chair in Public Accounts Committee, and in every opening we are very stringent on substantive accounting officers. Substantive because when you give them money, you give them a big amount of money. You need them to have full confidence to handle that funding. And in some cases we have rejected accounting officers that are always of acting capacities, even to handle certain things, because they lose confidence. You want somebody to have the confidence and on. So I want the minister to assure us about the status of the acting executive director, because this is a big money. And if somebody lacks confidence, the the public service regulation is very clear. Somebody cannot continue acting beyond a period of 6 months. So, the whole idea is that to give confidence to a public servant, that person must not be on act in the first place. So what are you doing with the status of the executive director?
But also the Minister of Finance. The Minister of Finance is actually the person who appoints the accounting officers through the PSSD. So the Minister of Finance would want to assure us that that department has a substantive accounting officer ready to handle this task.
Okay, can we please handle the more technical issue of the scope and the quantum of the money?
Madam Chair.
If we sort that one out, then we can go into the management issues.
Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. When this loan was submitted to us by Honorable Bahati, I think we were in the members' loan. I don't want to look as if I'm over-insisting on something. They said we give them more time to also get the letter. Because the letter which was written by the President by that time was of 2017. And Honorable Bahati read it very well to all of us. Kcca was cleared with a certain figure. And we agreed as members that after meeting the President last year, 2017, we met him before that letter was written, and the figures varied. And the minister agreed and said it's just a few weeks that the letter is delivered. I just wanted to also get some clarity whether we received another one. Secondly, I sit on another committee, and one day, in one of our meetings, the ED, who is with us here, there was a petition that was brought by one of our colleagues in Alex over buses under Bubu, where he was petitioning Parliament. There was a petition which was moved on the floor, where one company, local company, was saying Kcca was importing buses. And when it came to one of the committees where I sit, the lead came and specifically said Kcca has no intentions at all of procuring buses, but it would concentrate on infrastructure development. This loan, by the information we have, has a slot of buying 100 buses in this same loan. The details of the loan. In one meeting, he says they have no intentions of buying any. And we appreciated and we said that maybe if they are buying through UDC and government has a hand, so that Kcca remains, there's that recommendation, Kcca remains with infrastructure development. So this one becomes important in that line. Because when we are talking about Pioneer, how it failed, it was because of infrastructure. So I appreciate that this loan will do very well on infrastructure development to give private sectors chance to engage themselves in transport. Mr. Idi, why are you again borrowing money to buy 100 buses in this line?
Okay, can we get the information from Honorable Rico?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to know what I'm doing. Robert. Get the mic. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm happy Honorable Damson has brought the things forward. And Madam Chair, as a member of this committee, indeed, if the executive director in the other committee denied that Kcca does not plan to, indeed, at a national economy, it should be incumbent that it should be bringing Chair, management of metropolitan public transport is something that can only succeed unless it is when it is within regulation and government control. Many cities world over can only run metropolitan transport once it is under regulation of a system or an institution. I know that it is important for us to promote the private sector, but there are areas where there must be leverage for government to take charge. The chaos and confusion that is in our city and that will go to other cities that are coming up in Uganda will continue in wanton abandon if we don't sort out, first of all, the issue of infrastructure, the issue of transport, because the moment you organize the infrastructure arrangements and the transport in the cities, then you begin to see sanity. Can you do that with Ariko, whose major interest is profit? It's absolutely difficult. To me, if there's an opportunity today for Kcca, I will conclude, then you can inform me. If there's an opportunity for Kcca or government of Uganda through Kcca to start the initial processes of introducing regulated transport, this is the time we have to. Madam Chair, I haven't.
But why don't you get another letter of World Bank? I feel the malice needs to be started.
Discussing
Just not serious.
information of another committee.
And I also told you to get all the supporting
We don't know whether you need it.
But we are all members. You can be any member in a committee.
Chair, can we limit ourselves to the national
Thank you. I think it is in order to remember, as long as it's a member of parliament,
we shall have a meeting with them.
as he wishes, but the purposes of this exercise, I think let's open up. We should not be limited. But what has been discussed in other committees, let's open up. Maybe new things have emerged, which were not there when it was discussed at that time. Let's hear everybody.
I wanted to give information to
additional information.
What Honorable is saying. I do remember that we, as government, gave money to Kcca to run the railway from Weyogerere, Kayora to Kampala. And there it was a way of regulating. And other information, if you go to Tanzania, the port of Dar es Salaam, they have opened up roads, but they have also bought buses so as to support the transport system in the city. So it will not be peculiar for Kcca to do the same.
Now, I just wanted to give additional information to Honorable for which he touched. As the chair of local government, we visited the World Bank funded project in many countries because we wanted to see how the roads, for example, in Kampala and other districts, were acting. But what we found interesting in Dar es Salaam was that there were bus terminals created which are managed by government. There were train terminals created. But in order not to deny private practitioners, these terminals would let me give you an example if you talk about Kampala. That the center would control this area up to Kcca or Weyogerere. Then from there, the private bus operators, the taxis, would take these passengers and continue. And there is absolute order in Dar es Salaam. And I just want to request that the Kcca, if Corona ends, but you can also tap this from the internet now. You go and see how orderly Dar es Salaam has moved away from the chaos.
I think the quarrel of Honorable Tamzungu.
No, it's not a
You
quarrel.
see, we have made good progress because we have presented it. This route was a stumbling block. So the support is we shall give you. We haven't yet taken
I think the information, one I said I wanted it right from the beginning. I don't know why you are mistaking me. Secondly, what are we calling through chair? The EP, Kcca, this information that is also taking into consideration. Kcca needs over 2,000 buses in the city. That is true. Kcca invited private sector, private members to come and give Kcca a plan on how buses can be run.
But why can't we do that?
After inviting them, they're actually in very good close relationship with a company called Tondeka. I'm just giving an example. I think one in Nama. So why I was giving this information, I just wanted more clarity where they're still with that statement of buying, also handling, or the adverts or the invitations they gave to the private sector. Simple. And in that line, what was very good was all these buses under private sector were not, Madam Chair, were not private. It was a collection of all the stakeholders and they were under UDC. They were under UDC and it was moving very well.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I was given information. Let me conclude so that the ED comes in. Madam Chair, I want to thank the colleagues that are actually thinking in the direction that at the level of legislature we should be. Let us get to a point where, as Parliament, as government, we must define what can be run by the private sector and what should remain under the government or the public entities. Transport in metropolitans is one that we need to sort out. Our city, at the moment, loses a lot of revenue of would-be people that want to come here as tourists, as investors, as people to develop it up. Why? Because of the chaos. And the first thing you see, whether a city is organized or not, is the way they manage the transport. So I would like to say, Kcca, this is one aspect. You go, you find City Link, is it London Transport? Is it what pretty good this city? That is the first thing that demonstrates to you that there is organization. When you took us 2 weeks ago around, and eventually you brought us through Bakuli and Rembe Road down to, I was in awe, to be honest. I have been one of the people who has a little bit of biases about Kcca and so on, but the strides you are taking, that is what we would like to see the parent city of Uganda doing. Take courage and indeed managerial courage, because I know businesses and business people have a tendency of making government withdraw or shy away from very good public policies because they would like to continue to do business. This is one thing you can be able to achieve. You can have my support. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Chair, I think what Honorable Arikwa said is very, very important. When we adopted the policy of privatization, we made mistakes. So we shall now be more careful. Because we even privatized those businesses or activities which would operate better under government. So we need really to study the proposal. Of course, the business sector, we always give justification because for them they want business. But we must look at avoid the repeat of the mistakes we made in the past as government.
Chair, thank you. Mine is a request, Honourable Minister. When you look at the design of these roads, it was post-COVID, and during this COVID, you've come to learn that many Ugandans would want to do exercise, would want to jog, but they don't have where to do it from. when they sent us for a lockdown, I think you saw crowds running around. But I can tell you in Uganda, you want to jog, you can't get anywhere to jog. So I was requesting that you review your design. Consider jogging, you know, I don't know whether it will be. Yeah, somewhere people can jog from. Because you do it is very small, and you find the border people are harassing you from there. So you need to widen those lanes, especially on these outskirts, the ones you put in the outskirts, so that we are able to do our exercise. And maybe biking, because I saw you showed us downtown, but those same jogging lanes can be at the same time biking lanes. The president has encouraged people to buy as many bicycles as possible. But where will they ride them from? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. This will be the last for now. I would like to pick up from what Honorable Tai was saying. Yes, pedestrian also something like jogging and so on. Indeed, that is the right way to go. Madam Honorable Minister, the day you are able to get that sorted and deal with this taxi touting and borders, that is the day Kcca. I know that this is the most complicated thing, especially when now we are getting towards January, February next year. But I tell you, Honorable Taiwa, if I were to be lucky one day, and I am in the seat of Honorable Benny Namgwanya or General Katumba Wamala for 1 week, there wouldn't be a border on any street in Wamala City. So if there is even a way that government can liberate the opportunity,
After February next year.
if there was a way that government and Kcca can liberate the opportunity of COVID-19, it might be an opportunity. Look at how the city looks like now. Yes, I know that we are anxious, we are scattered by corona, but the city looks different. It's because of this. So I thank you.
Thank you very much, ED. Please respond.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Honorable Chair, before the ED responds, can I respond on the policy issue?
We want to bring in that one last.
The policy last. Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair. And honorable members, I first of all want to clarify that Kcca did not advertise any tender that led to the emergence of Tondeka. Tondeka was a purely private endeavor, and they were supposed to look for their own money to buy those buses they wanted to bring. I want to thank the honorable member for his submission on public transport in cities. He explained it so well, and indeed, he has made the case for a paradigm shift as we consider public transport in cities. We currently take it as a purely private venture, and that's why our city has become what it is now. These people operating matatus and borders are only interested in profit. That's why you can never have a scheduled service. You can never plan your journey, because the taxi must first wait to get full, and then it gets on the road. Everyone who has the money brings a taxi on the road. And that's why we have this congestion that we are having now. So what we are trying to do in this project is to do a pilot of scheduled bus services along a certain route. It will be a circular route in the city. And this will be preceded by a study. And this study is going to help us identify what needs to be improved on that route for the buses to run properly, and what mode of management we are supposed to use to manage it properly, so that we have control over it, but we also let the private sector participate in its operation. That is what we are trying to do. The number of buses are few because this is a pilot. But I'm very sure once this is successful, there will be need to buy more buses. We have already designed the bus rapid transit project for Kampala, similar to Dar es Salaam, as Honorable Okumu Regan was telling us. The designs are ready. We do not have funding yet. But again, it comes from the thinking that public transport should be financed by the private sector. It cannot if you want to run it properly. So once we do this pilot, I am sure that we shall be able to persuade government to provide even more funding for public transport in Kampala, and then we can get rid of the traffic jam that we are having now. That is how public transport is run in all other cities. There is very strong government control and even sometimes subsidy, because it's a public good and its benefits may not necessarily be the profit that you get every day, but its benefits are elsewhere in the economy. If people are able to move on time and not waste time in the jam, it is a benefit to the economy. That is how we are supposed to look at it. We have a component for pedestrianization of streets in this project. That's why every road we are going to do will have a pedestrian walkway, meaning that people will have where to walk or to jog. If you look in that paper, we have 134 kilometers of pedestrian walkways. So every road will have a pedestrian walkway for walking or jogging. And where we have more space, we shall also provide cycle lanes. I beg to submit.
Thank you. Chair, I wanted to add the issue of lights.
Oh, yes.
Because the road we saw is indicated there are going to be some lighting.
Yes.
But there are some roads which you made in the past, and they are not lit, and they are a danger to the community. If the cameras that may go there will never see the thieves. So what are you doing about improving on the lighting system, especially on the areas? I live in Mutum where they covered only about 2 kilometers of road. The other one is still dark.
Yeah.
When will KCC do that?
Okay. Thank you very much, honorable members. Actually, all the roads in this project will have street lighting. I did not mention that, but I think I need to mention it. They are all going to have street lighting all through. And on top of that, we also plan to buy 10,000 more lights to light the other roads that haven't yet received street lighting, also as part of this project.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think one of the things which are damaging our roads is the garbage. Garbage disposal.
Yeah.
All over the place. Is there something in this law to enhance your capacity to handle the garbage? Well, we have seen a lot of silting of the drainages. These days you are doing well because you are putting up very big drainages, but they are getting silted with bottle or with beer, with whatever. And when this litter is removed, it's put on the side of the road, and it has to wait for weeks before it's collected. And while it is waiting, the rain comes and it goes back into the drainage, which causes number one.
Yeah.
And I also have something to do with the new cities. Honorable Minister, can we, when you are planning these new cities, please, avoid the mistakes in Kampala? Plan them for public transport right from the beginning. Plan them with proper drainage right from the beginning. This problem of every house having septic tank. You know, we are sitting on a sea of septic tanks. Once they start bursting, this place will be filled with heat. Because every home will be short. Can you plan for central sewage? And even in Kampala, in some places, can you try in the upcoming suburbs, can you try to have centralized
C1 network. It's a sewerage network.
Madam Chair, before
which you can
Chair, there's one question here.
Yes, Chairman.
I want Engineer Kcca to remember very well. I think about 5 to 7 years ago, we talked about the design of your roads, which don't last more than 7 months lifespan. Okay?
7 months?
7 months. About 30 years. The same thing, relatively, because of the technology they're using from 1960. This is 2010. I think I did my presentation. It's 10 years ago. And you people, Kcca in particular, because of some bribes, you go to those people up to now. You have refused taking technology of using the roads. That's why we make a road today, every day. If they were making road every day, gentlemen, we have been independent since when? How can we use the technology of 1960? This time. There's something to some university, and he knows very well, especially in English Kcca. Because I presented to him. I want him the answer. That research you did.
Yeah, I just wanted to supplement what you have said. You know, I have been chair of local government, and we focus at the World Bank funded speed roads, especially up country. Their focus were components of drainage, as you have said. They are very strong about it. Components of greening, lighting, and I don't know whether these ones are all accommodated under that. That they will focus exclusively on the quality of drainage, exclusively on greening. But the type of trees, sometimes you see people plant, may not eventually merge to green the area. And then the garbage collection, as you said, in those municipalities where work was clearly done, you find that you walk a small distance, there's a provision for garbage dropping. You know, and it would be the responsibility of the municipality now sometimes as people move to drop this. So I don't know in this road design in Kampala now, whether you have some of those provisions and the quality of those roads were also specified. They are supposed to last for 25 years. They are supposed to have a thickness that would not be like what the general is talking about, that 7 months. It's actually sort of 25 years. So I think these are the areas that we need to reassure the committee whether the kind of road you're going to build.
In writing.
No, even if it is not in writing, but if they can put it to us here that these are the roads that we are going to have, and it will last this number of years.
Okay. I want to substitute on that one. I think was something I think was the chairman was the big man in Kcca. We did a stretch.
Was contesting for mayorship.
205. I mean, whatever it was. We did a piece of road, 2005.
But one is big.
Today, that piece of road has never changed. But I can tell you how many times have you repaired those roads. Why did your roads last just 5, 6 years? A tarmac road.
It is not true.
I mean, that's technology is there.
No.
Why did you substitute? Use 5 minutes. If done by your
Madam Chair, I think this is the moment to have your song of getting a utility corridor in all these cities, Kampala and other cities, so that we don't dig these roads every time, so that my general is happy with a road that lasts for 20 years, not 7 months, as you have said.
Oh, that's a big when it was. Yeah, I think that we have to tell us where they have created utility corridors in these roads.
Okay.
And in fact, this is should be the policy of government, relevant government, to minimize costs by coming up with central utility corridors on all the roads.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. A number of issues have been raised. There was the issue of cleaning of our drains. We are enhancing our capacity for this. And in fact, in this project, there is procurement of some equipment, some of which we shall use for cleaning drains regularly. There is also planting of trees. If you look in the results matrix of the project, there is planting of 10,000 trees. The particular species, we shall have to do some research and get the most appropriate one. Regarding the sewer network in Kampala, it is true that the sewer penetration is very low in the city of Kampala. I think it's about 8%. But this is not the mandate of Kcca. It is the mandate of the National Water and Sewerage Corporation. So people have had to resort to on-site disposal system where they use septic tank or pit latrines for that matter. These septic tanks are emptied from time to time. They have served quite well because the majority use that. But really the best would have been to have a sewer network in the city. So
because of that scattered sewer all over the place, Kampala water, that water which comes from the wells, has been tested and found unhygienic.
Contaminated, yeah.
And that is attributed to having sewer all over the place.
the pit latrines.
Yeah, pit latrines.
Yes. Yeah, Honorable Chair, National Water, whenever they have a sewerage project, they have never failed to do it in Kampala. We always cooperate and they install these sewers. But it's a matter of financing. They do not have the financing to expand all over the city.
But you've given them a huge road.
Because you can allocate land. If you don't plan an area, it will be difficult.
And as part of planning, that's what we are talking about.
Yeah. Chair.
Make it cheaper for government and be more convenient for all the utilities to use that central.
Chair, what we've done.
But that is a planning product.
Yes.
Information. I think I remember when National Water was presenting, when we were working on the road for Kampala sanitation. That's a massive line, sewer line up to Katosi, which we are working on. So I think after that line has been completed in 2020, in 2021, I think they said, Jack, yes, they already passed in Maria. Yes, they said 2021, we should be able to solve this problem.
It is called Gava 3.
No.
That's water.
It is
That's
water.
a component. That's a component. Huge component.
It is water. Katosi is water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is Gava 3. It's called Gava 3.
Yeah, the one for sewer is going to solve all these problems.
Chair, regarding water and sewerage, it is true there is a large water project of National Water from Katosi coming to Kampala, but they also have a sewerage project within Kampala.
Yeah.
There's going to be a sewer treatment plant in Nalukolongo area.
Yes.
And other parts of the city, and we are working well with them. So once they expand their treatment capacity, we can also start connecting more homes to the pipeline. Regarding the quality of the roads, I want to assure this committee that these roads are being done to the highest standard. In fact, if you look at all the roads we've done, and I mean reconstruction, there is a difference between patching and reconstruction. Most of the time we are patching roads that have already served their lifetime. They are very old. But all the roads we've reconstructed are to the highest standard. And they will last a minimum of 15 years. They will even go to 20 years with good maintenance. So that is what we are doing under this project. The technology that the honorable member talked about, yes, I saw it, but in this country, like in others, the Minister of Works and Transport is in charge of standards for road construction, and they give us the guidance on what materials to use in roads. We cannot come up with any new material to use without it going through the standard verification by the Minister of Works. Right now, I know that there's a product called Probes, where they have done a trial in Kcca. I propose that that technology also be subjected to that trial and monitored by the Minister of Works. We shall be very happy to adopt it once it has served as expected. Yeah. Yeah.
Can we allow him to
There's something interesting. The same very person who received submission is the very same person who sat on the verification, the same very person who changed the findings. Now he's saying we're waiting for.
No, but you said as who?
He's not the
No, when you were saying, you said as who? No, you said as who?
I'm so surprised by
You have an interest.
Then you have an interest.
You are a private person.
Seem to be very close.
I think so. We need to check your relationship.
Honorable Chair, Chair, regarding the utility corridors, we are going to carry out a detailed integrated master plan for Kampala. We have received funding in form of a grant from JICA, and this now is going to be the blueprint for everything we are going to do in Kampala. The land development, the roads, the water, the sewerage, and all other utilities. If it wasn't for COVID, this study would have begun by now. But as soon as we are out of this lockdown, the study is going to begin, and I believe after that we shall move forward in a more organized way. I beg to submit.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. My young sister.
Serious young sister. Honourable Chair, I want to thank you very much, and I want to thank the members for the very good proposals they are giving to us. You know, Kampala is a city for all of us, and we would wish to see Kampala improving every day. And to me, allow me to put on record that this committee has made my day today, because what we are planning to do is what you are also telling us to do, meaning that when it comes to implementation, we already have allies here who will be able to support our plans. Honourable Chair, if I can comment on the policy issue raised here, as a government, we really realized that transport is a public good, and you can't leave it in the hands of the private sector. And we visited Dar es Salaam. We looked at their transport system, and we found it amazing. We learned a lot of things from there. By the time we went, at the back of our minds, we thought we would leave transportation in the hands of private players. But when you reached there, we learned that it's a very, very expensive venture. And if you leave it in the hands of the private dealers, then first of all, it would be very expensive for the common man. And secondly, it will be completely messed up, because to them it's all about profit maximization. So by the time we left, they had given us two alternatives. One, to make it purely a public good managed by government. And the second alternative was to leave it in the hands of the private players, but the government subsidizes it. So when it came back, we presented this to Cabinet. It was agreed that indeed it is a public good, and these are the first steps we are making towards it. What the ED has just told you, they're the first steps we are making towards making it a public good. And secondly, we are also guided by Cabinet that if this loan materializes and we are to get this first batch of buses, these buses must be bought from within, either from our Kcca motors or other people who are assembling from within the country, but not importing. That is already on record, and it has a Cabinet extract to that effect. So that is how we are moving, Honorable Chair, in that direction. And we are glad that we have had a meeting of minds in this meeting today. So we are very happy that you are going to be our allies in pushing this. Secondly, Honorable Chair, as you said, of course, we are seeing some dividends from COVID. We sat down as managers of the city, and we started on reforming and on streamlining a lot of things in the city. Key of them is the transportation in the city, the transportation system in the city, which I just request for your support. You know, it will not be easy coming because of people who are already in that comfort zone. You know, getting them out of that comfort zone is not going to be very easy, but of course, partly, COVID has played some part for us. As we organize, ensuring social distancing and whatever, we have to ride on that. And we are glad. We are glad that we're expecting some support from here. The rest of the issues were for noting, for our improvement, and then others which required answers, the ED responded. But maybe on the issue of his acting capacity, if you can allow me to respond to the member. As you are aware, honorable colleagues, the appointment of an executive director is a presidential appointment. And when Dr. Jennifer Musisi left in December 2017, we notified the appointing authority. And when we notified him, he said he was going to handle. In the meantime, we've been working with Mr. Engineer Kcca. And sometime, I think, was it December last year, the appointing authority came up with an acting appointment for Engineer Kcca for 6 months, which is ending next month. And he promised by the time that ends, we shall have a substantive ED in that position, either in the name of Engineer Kcca or anybody else as he pleases. So, Honorable Chair, we are waiting for that appointment to come out. Okay. Yes.
Thank you very much.
So,
thank you very much, Honorable Minister, the team from Kcca. I think we are done with the note from Kcca, but one important thing, we are not proceeding until you get the presidential Senate. The more current one from 2017, and matching the figures which have been committed to our committee. Thank you.
Yeah, Chair, on that issue actually, there's a team that is now going to, the minister is going to speak